that you probably answered this
The
next
next
question.
5 questions?
No, but I just want to confirm.
Yeah.
The question is, do you feel that schools need to make cuts to stay within their budget, or do you believe further cuts will compromise quality of education students receive, and therefore you would advocate for a revenue increase to prevent further cuts?
Right.
Sounds like the latter.
Well, here's the thing. We don't know exactly what the state budget's going to look like. So we don't know the extent of the cuts that either the extent of the cuts that we would have to make, or the amount that we would have to ask for in terms of local revenue. So that is going to be a balancing act, and it's also going to be a reality check. I mean, so the district does a poll before we go out for a parcel tax. We're not going to be on a suicide mission and put something out that the community is going to reject. We know it's tough economic times. We live in a town with a lot of government workers, a lot of UC Davis workers, state workers, county workers. Mm-hmm. Everyone has had furlough time and pay reductions, so we understand that. And that, of course, we're still hopeful because this community is so supportive. So we know that somewhere in there's always a line of what will be supported. We have to understand exactly what we're asking for. And articulate a case for why we need the programs that we're putting into a parcel tax. So depending on the cuts we get, we may, from the state, the reductions in funding from the state, we may well have to make some additional cuts. I actually do believe we will have to do that. I don't think we can go out for the entire amount that we are either going to get or that we've had in the past. And already we're coming forward, again, depending on the state budget cuts, with a few $1 million to make up in ongoing revenue. So our teacher concessions this last year, those are one time. And the gift from the Schools Foundation, fundraising that way, is also one time. So we need to find a way to backfill for that one-time money, and then if there's additional cuts, that would be more. So we're just going to have to see how that plays out with the budget that's put forward.
And you had indicated that you had attended public schools, and all of your children have attended public schools. Is that true?
Davis Public Schools.
And Davis Public Schools at that.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's one of the things.
Right.
The last question I had, and Bobby, you may have a question.
I do have flashing blue devil horns, just letting you know. I do.
What do you think of the Race to the Top federal initiative and how that impacts the Davis School District?
Thus far, since California was not chosen, it hasn't had any effect. We will just have to see what gets handed down from the state. I know there's a lot of pressure on, how our teachers are treated and evaluated in terms of the Race to the Top funding. It just wasn't. I actually remember going to a workshop on this the last go round when we went down when we were at a conference for school board associations. And it just, anybody who really was watching pretty much knew California wasn't going to be chosen in that go-round. So we'll have to see what we're handed.
But do you think, I think part of the issue was that California was not willing to comply with the evaluation or the tying of teacher performance to potentially penalizing them in pay. If that continues to stay in, is that something that is contrary, that philosophy of doing that, is that contrary to what you think is good for the Davis School District?
Yeah, I have pretty strong feelings on this. So I don't think it's an accurate measure of how valuable a teacher is or how effective a teacher is to look only at standardized test scores. The same way that looking only at standardized test scores doesn't really tell you that much about a student either. So directly tying teacher pay or even their job only to standardized test scores just doesn't even make sense. We'd end up with a teaching force that wouldn't be what you would otherwise select for your strongest group of employees. So I'm much more interested in looking at teacher performance in the classroom and looking at student work that's produced. In Davis, we have kind of a unique situation. It's a good problem to have, but a lot of our students are already pretty high performing on standardized tests, which means if you're looking for an increase in their standardized test scores, there's not a lot of room for improvement, and that catches a lot of districts that are high achieving districts. And so that's one situation. The other is that because we do have a lot of students who are already above grade level, when you test them at grade level, you're not even testing the math level that they're currently in, and that's a thing too. We don't, I think in our district we've tried really hard to preserve programs like hands-on science. We don't test that. That's not in a standardized testing situation. So it's almost like, I wish I could think of a good analogy off the top of my head at the end of the day, but it would be like a doctor looking at, only a hand to discover what's wrong with someone that's come in with multiple symptoms. And it just isn't effective to only look at one.